Ahora vamos a seguir con el próximo expositor. Él fue presidente y COO de Sega Games, ex-CEO de Rocket Internet Japan y asesor de múltiples startups. O sea, el hombre tiene experiencia. Invito a este escenario, y también le comento que puede mantener su traductor, al señor Yuuki Fushimi, quien nos hablará de las ciudades del futuro creando ciudades inteligentes, las Smart Cities. Yuuki.
It was great to see everybody coming together to build unity amongst the public sector and private sector to foster innovation, which is very rare, especially in Asia, where there's a huge divide between entrepreneurs and people in the public sector. So this is a huge progress, and I'm very hopeful that this is not just a one-time thing that we're seeing here with innovation, but this is going to be a global phenomena with people like you pushing this forward. So right now, we have a little over 600 urban centers, over 1.5 billion people. That generates over $30 trillion in economic activity. And this is slated to grow to over 64 trillion USD by 2030. And this figure always makes me wonder, why isn't this 100%? And fundamentally speaking, when we talk about innovation, it's to go further than anybody in the humanity has ever gone before. It's to make a progress on behalf of entire humanity, such that we have a progress that advances humanity as a whole. So this is obviously not innovative to say that we're going to have 60%. There should be 100%, and this should also be 7 billion people living in smart cities. Now, what is a smart city? Smart city is a productive city. And now, how do we measure productivity? Productivity is generally measured by overall liberty that a city is able to provide. So a smart city then is a city of liberty. City filled with liberty in such a way where everything that people do through innovation leads to somebody having better liberties. And the liberty here is specifically to have equality, where the liberties enjoyed by a few is not a common phenomenon. Where energy, resource, financial limitations is completely being given out without limits to people's capacities, capabilities, or situations. So the presentation? Now, so what is financial limitation? And the financial limitation is actually measured by how much we have in terms of productivity that's not being measured or realized by financial terms. So a smart city, a productive city, is best measured by how low a price of something can be in that city. So a financial limitation means lower prices, better finances for people, where the limits are artificial, and productivity makes up for any foreseeable limitation a city may or may not have. So in this environment, what we do is realize productivity through technology. All right, so Internet of Things. In order to realize the productivity of a society, Internet of Things can be that catalyst to realize the productivity a society needs through technological automation. So a society's productivity can then be given out through IoT automation, and any marginal costs where a product being made might transfer onto the people is eliminated or minimized by the use of connectedness of technology. So, by having an Internet of Things automated society, we're then able to have more productivity than we've ever imagined before. That means more liberties than we've ever imagined before. And by having more liberties, we're then able to further foster time for people to have some discussions about how to innovate further, to take a society or humanity further. So some of these examples that I think we're still not at a stage where we can comfortably realize this at a global level is smart government. Smart government meaning that, as I mentioned before, smart is productive government. In Japan, we have a lot of caucuses amongst different people, a lot of discussions. But I think we're finally moving to a point where all the countries are uniting as a single entity, where no single nation is in a position where it can say, okay, now I am self-sufficient because I have technology or I have people. We're now at a position where all the nations are in a position to have a government that's productive by cooperations through other nations, whether it be through political dialogue, through technological cooperation, or through resource cooperation. So in that environment, when we have a lot of these local political issues being discussed in Japan, I always wonder, where is that productivity? Where if we're thinking about regional regulation, say for instance, in the future we have a merged region where the entire Asian region is annexed together. All that political work we've done is actually illusory productivity. It could have been completely rewritten by having an earlier dialogue with regional players on how can we create a regional law or a global law to manage some of these connectivities. So I think, in my mind, that is the smart government. And finally, we're starting to have these discussions at some of these panels about how to annex the nations, how to eliminate the barriers to trade, how to manage some of these protectionist taxation policies in resource lacking nations like Japan. How do we make it a little bit better for people? So PPP, public-private partnerships, also goes into this a little bit more, where in a country like Japan, a private company has a lot of say on these issues. So even if the government wants to have a unified, smart, productive government, the private companies may have its own overhead. It may not want to change the way market is structured, specifically because their company might be dependent on that unique structure of the market. And that obviously is not smart. It's not productive. Because the moment the smart government takes effect, we have a unified society or country, we have TPP and other initiatives set forth, that market structure will break down, and that company, no matter how big, will have to adjust. So public-private partnerships to foster smart innovation, to have companies think about how to have connectivity, and to have governments think and also teach the companies about having proper connectivity with both the local players and global players is going to be crucial. And technology, on the government side, has to be planned out in such a way where we're monitoring through automated means, measuring through quantifiable means, and based off of those monitors, we're making the right recommendation, regardless of what the company is, before we even meet the companies. So we know the exact recommendation to make when we have these public-private partnerships with companies. And smart infrastructure. I think right now is the perfect time to start thinking about having that unlimited productivity for societies in such a way where we're involving those private companies to restructure their businesses, the true impact they have on the society. So when we have all the different players in the globe come together, that value of the company is going to be based off of the liberties it provides within the region, based off of the history it has, being attached to that region. And that's something I think they do deserve. And another issue is smart banking. Smart banking, productive banking. And productive banking in Japan means having a lot of loans. And this is obviously creating a problem for a lot of different regions where loans are unsustainable. And that's also a problem where we have a country like Zimbabwe, where trillions of dollars is worth less than $1 in some other country's currency. And all that work people did doing banking, when we measure the innovation of that, there's very little real perceivable productivity that's left behind. So the banking system, through public-private partnerships, would have to think about how do we connect the different currencies together, the systems together, in such a way where we're unifying the entire ecosystem and eventually have a unified banking currency system. And this is not so far in the future where a country like Zimbabwe is going to be using the same currency as a country like Japan. And I think there's going to be a huge shift in how the banks work when we're developing some of these nations. So this is something that's going to have to be automated through Internet of Things, monitored properly with the right data and the right recommendations. So eventually, I think I've seen this in other cities, that I understand that now we have much better resource management capabilities. This country, in terms of productivity, I think is better than a country like Japan because it has resources. Resource brings productivity to a nation by having an ability to lower price of a commodity. That's something not many nations have. And that's more liberty for the people living in this nation. And further technological automation only adds to that competitiveness, that liberty that people are able to enjoy and the liberty that this country is able to bring globally. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs and people here working on this. And this is, I think, something that can be maximized. If the right model for this, how do we recycle a product, a commodity, a resource in such a way where once it's mined, it can be used, reused, exported throughout the entire globe for hundreds of years. And I think we're finally coming to a point where we're technologically capable of getting there. Now, eventually we're going to have a society where all the governments are going to be tracking the resources, their productivities, their innovative capabilities in a single portal, in a single unified connected system. And that data will then allow us to understand where we stand as a humanity on innovation. And that also gives us tools to see what do we need to do to further progress our society and our humanity. So what we're doing here, promoting entrepreneurship, is exactly this. And I think this is something that's extremely exciting going forward because once people are now aware, we need to be advancing the productivity of a society, of a humanity, through entrepreneurship. Literally, the entrepreneurs are heroes moving our society forward. And this is the exact kind of people we need to make the change that we need in the society. And eventually, there will come a time where we have enough marginal overheads eliminated in such a way where we have universal health care, where everything's being given out for free. Universal education. You know, we can post videos of a lecture for free and have the entire world enjoy a certain level of educational standards for all the children, move as fast as they want, as slow as they want, regardless of where they are or how they're brought up. Free infrastructure services like free Wi-Fi, mobility, free food, free housing. There will come a time where resources are managed efficiently enough where we're able to 3D print a house using resources that are recycled, using energy that's renewable. So as long as we have a land or a sky that's high enough or large enough, we're then able to produce a house or food for free. And it is my sincere hope that before 2030, we at least have that innovation, a collective innovation between different people, where we have a fully connected entrepreneurial system to encourage one another. Entrepreneurs are in governments, entrepreneurs are in companies, whether it be large multinational companies or in universities, where people have resources to do experiments, but without the proper company support. So, by working together, we will then be able to create a global citizen where everybody is working together to foster this automation, connectivity, and smart innovation to move the humanity forward. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Yuki. You surprised us. Thank you. Un aplauso para Yuki.